Hello, everybody. How are you? My name is Melinda Hart. You are watching Stamping with Hart, Hart, which is my last name. I am an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up, and I wanted to do a quick introduction on this video. Today's video is going to be a really fun video on how to make backgrounds with Stampin' Blends, and then also turn some fun regular stamps into silhouettes for either a harvest or a night scene. So I hope that you enjoy the 3 cards that we have coming up. And I do have a free project sheet that you can link to in the description box below. But the reason that I'm jumping on at the beginning of this video is because it is Sunday, July 28th, 2024. And if you are interested in my Halloween free card class with purchase, that is going to end on July 31st. So this is my last call for anybody who is interested in that free class with purchase from me. So just to give you a few details about what that's like. And again, I'll have information in the description box below. You can also go to my blog. I'll put it up on the screen here. And then this is my email. So if you want to reach out to me directly, this is my email. But basically with a $50 purchase with me in the online store up until July 31st, 2024, you will qualify for 3 card kits. The video is public, but there is going to be a bonus video using the playful ghosts with all of the card layouts. And if you make a $100 purchase before or on July 31st, you will get 6 card kits. And so I will link to that video, that class video, which is available for everybody, but the class kits that are going to be cut and mailed to you are only for the people who place orders with me at either the $50 or the $100 level. You will also get a project sheet with all of the instructions and the measurements and all of that lovely stuff for the cards. So the Potions and Spells bundle, which is an online exclusive product with Stampin' Up. So let me just explain what that is. And I'm actually going to show you where to go to find this. Okay. From here, they have a rotating screen, and you'll see we have bonus days, which I'm always forgetting to talk about, you guys. You can earn a bonus days coupon here, right here, online exclusives. Okay. So we can click shop now from here. And we'll be right into the online exclusives that you can check out. I recommend searching it by newest products right over here to the right. There's a little drop down here of what you can choose to search by. Okay. And if you want to just put in, the description, you want to put in the search bar, you can do that. But Potions and Spells is right here. And then Playful Ghosts are right here. Okay, so just as soon as you see that. Now, if I go back up to the main screen just one more time, when you click on the little Stampin' Up logo, it's going to take you right back to the home screen. You can also find it right here. And you can click online exclusives that way. And it's going to bring you to the same screen. So whichever way you choose to shop it, you can check out these online exclusives. And when I tell you that they are fabulous, I really mean they are fabulous. So don't miss out on these, even though they're not in a catalog. There's so many great things that we're going to be able to use for fall and for harvest here. Changing Leaves bundle, Frosted Forest, for example. Let me see if it will take you to the next. We're actually going to be working with the stamp set a little bit today, Scenic Pumpkin Patch. And we'll be working with this one coming up a little bit more. But there are so many things that we can do and create fall and, harvest projects with. Iconic Celebrations kind of touches on different holidays. We have some card kits from Kit Collection that are also online exclusives in here. By Your Side, I have to put this one together. I actually have been holding on to this. It's sold out and now it's back in stock. So I should do a video on that one. That is how you can access online exclusives, shop those products. Online exclusives, we don't have as much of a handle on those. Sometimes when they're gone, they're gone. And then sometimes if it just says unavailable, then that means it will come back into stock and it's currently on back order. So when you're scrolling and you can click it and it goes right to your cart, it is available and you can purchase it. Now, bonus days coupons, I got a little bit distracted there. You can actually earn a $5 coupon from Stampin' Up! With every $50 purchase that you make between July 3rd and 31st, 2024. And those coupons, however many you've earned, can be redeemed August 1st through August 31st, 2024. So that's something great to keep in mind too. One thing that I like to shout out for those bonus days coupons, redeeming those bonus days coupons, is if you need to do a restock of any of your inventory, like your envelopes, your basic white cardstock, basic black cardstock, that type of thing, or prepaid Paper Pumpkin subscriptions are also a great way to redeem those coupons. So you can earn them up until July 31st. And then, of course, you can redeem them in August. So if you have any questions for me, please let me know. Otherwise, enjoy today's cards and don't forget to get the free project sheet. So here are 3 of the stamp sets we're going to be using today from our home: Scenic Pumpkin Patch and Under the Moon. Here is a look at one of the cards, although I do make a slight edit to that card before the end of the video. But from our home is an annual catalog, and it is one of those sets that I feel like is a little bit hidden, and we're going to draw some attention to it today. Scenic Pumpkin Patch, of course, so cool. And Under the Moon is something you're going to see from me a lot this season. One of the coolest stamp sets we have in the catalog right now. We're also going to be using the Deckled Rectangles dies and the Garden Meadow dies. I will have all of the products used listed on the free project sheet. Be sure to download that if you would like the free project sheet for today's cards. And it will have all of the instructions and the measurements and the products used, as well as a couple of photos for you. And I will have a link in the description box below. So the Deckled Rectangles, at first I cut the whole thing in basic white. Now I'm going back through a second time with basic black cardstock, and I'm cutting just about half of the rectangle this time. So what we're going to be doing, our goal with this particular card, is to create a silhouette scene. Silhouette scenes, I think, are just absolutely a must for any sort of like moody evening, Halloween type card type of deals. Now, this is the Garden Meadow die. There are 3 different sort of like landscape or grassy dies that are part of that set. And this one I feel like is the spookiest. There's another one that it has like really spooky grass, and that one would be really spooky too. So we'll have to use that in another card. Now, this is Lemon Lolly cardstock that has been punched out with the 2 3/8 inch circle punch. And this is our Thanks die cut from the Thanks and Beyond dies add-on. So for current Paper Pumpkin subscribers, and I know so many of you watch these videos, you may already own that set of dies, or if you don't, if you're an active Paper Pumpkin subscriber, you can purchase add-ons, refills, and past kits. I'm getting out my gray granite ink. We're going to stamp our moon from Under the Moon stamp set. You may recognize Under the Moon from my Halloween class. And I know that I mentioned in the beginning of the video that there's just a few days left if you are interested in getting the card kits with that free class with purchase. So if you need details, I will link to that video and I'll also have it in the description box below, or you can always reach out to me via email as well. So Under the Moon, I think, is just going to be one of those stamp sets that you can use for everything. I don't always say that. I really don't.
but I just love the artwork on this. So I'm actually stamping gray granite onto lemon lolly, and I love the look. I love the look with the basic white as well. I usually stamp it on both sides just to see if I can always get a little bit of a better lineup, and I ended up liking the second side better. So that's the side that we're going to keep. But whatever color that you want your moon to be, you can have a lot of fun playing with the different inks and the different cardstock shades for this. I also really, really love basic beige as the moon color if you use the Under the Moon stamp set. And as you can see, the 2 3/8 inch punch is a perfect fit for that particular stamp. Now, I don't know if you have ever made backgrounds with Stampin' Blends, but that is what we're going to do today. And what I'm doing is looking for those Moody blues, okay? So we're going to use Night of Navy, we're going to use Misty Moonlight, and we're going to use boho blue. So these could be any type of blue that you want to describe them as, but for this scene in particular, I definitely wanted it to have a little bit of a moody, spooky vibe. So what I'm doing is I'm checking the colors on my scrap paper. I'm checking the dark and the light of each shade to see what order I want to put them in. I'm starting with Night of Navy dark at the very top. Doesn't matter if it's not smooth, okay? It doesn't matter if you're running out of ink. You can always overlap it with another blue in your collection, so fear not. The great thing, and this is Misty Moonlight, by the way, the great thing about alcohol markers, the Stampin' Blends, or alcohol markers in general, is that they blend very nicely. Now, there are different rules of thought about how smooth you want it. I want it to look moody. I want it to look streaky, okay? So you just see me going down this panel using the dark and the light of the two darker blues first, and then down here in the lower part of the panel, I'm using the boho blue combo. So I'm literally just working my way down. And you can see there's definitely some variation in the color there. There's some variation in the streaks. The idea of this is not to be perfect when it comes to coloring with markers or alcohol, Stampin' Blends. The idea with this is to create a really unique, moody sky for our moonlight scene. Okay, so now you can see me lining up that black deckled rectangle. And again, it doesn't matter if the deckled rectangle edges are not perfect. Have fun with this. Don't stress about it. It doesn't have to be a perfect alignment, right? You're really barely even going to be able to tell. But now what we're going to do, and there are a few different ways to go about this, but From Our Home has two different buildings. Okay, so this one is what I would describe as like more of that traditional farmhouse, that sort of Americana farmhouse look. Okay, and then there's another one that looks like a series of row homes, like you might see in New York. They're called brownstones. Is that what they're called? I actually grew up in row homes in Pittsburgh, which is very, very different than the ones that are super expensive in New York. But it's essentially it's more of like a city block building look. Okay. So those are the two different options. I'm going to tell you right now, they're both going to be absolutely fabulous for Halloween. Now, I had that little post-it, and I just covered on the very end of the house. There is a, a tree, and I just didn't feel like the tree was necessary. Now, if you own your Stampin' Write marker in basic black, you definitely are going to want to use it and give it some good exercise with all of your upcoming fall and Halloween projects. What I'm doing with this marker is just filling it in. So we don't need any of the details of this house except for the outline. And then the rest of it, we can kind of messy color or manipulate, those edges. Basically, that's what I'm doing. I'm creating a straight edge where that tree would have been. That's the only reason that I masked that one little part of the stamp, okay? And then this is like an opaque black, okay? So you can color it however you think best. It is perfect for silhouettes. I did this with my 12 weeks of Halloween last year, and I had to do it again this year. I like to go over it a couple of times. You don't necessarily need to do that, but it's up to you, right? But the idea is that this iconic house is a silhouette, in front of the moon on this hillside. Okay. So that is the look that I was going for there. And there are so many different variations that you could do with this basic concept for this card. You could make the Stampin' Blends background whatever you like, but doesn't that background look so cool with this? Now, this is what we call the Scenic Pumpkin Patch stamp set. The Scenic Pumpkin Patch stamp set is what's called an online exclusive, as are the Garden Meadow dies, by the way. So online exclusives mean that they're found exclusively on the website. They are not found in any printed or paper catalog, okay? So I'm taking these three little trees, these three spooky little trees that could also be really cool for fall. It doesn't necessarily have to be spooky, but I'm using my Memento Tuxedo Black ink here. If you have Stays On would also be fabulous for this one, but just know with Stays On, it's a solvent ink, so you definitely need a cleaner for that. That's permanent ink, but Memento is a little bit easier to manage. So I'm just stamping those trees right down where that groove happens, and that land sort of the hillside comes down and levels off. That's where I'm putting the three trees. Now you're going to see me sort of manipulating this because I was trying to find the best positioning for it. The thing that I was struggling with was that I didn't have perfect coverage of how I had colored the house with the moon, and it looked like roundish, and I didn't want it to look roundish. So what I end up doing is actually bringing in a piece of scrap, like a piece of leftover basic black that I had cut with that Garden Meadow die, and I just snipped a little piece into the corner, which you'll see coming up here in a minute. But these online exclusive products, that Scenic Pumpkin Patch stamp set, try saying that 3 times fast. It's beautiful, and we will definitely be working with that on more cards coming up here. So this is our basic white layer, just one layer above, about a quarter of an inch wider than the original one that we used. Now, I did want to show you guys what the moon looks like in basic white and basic beige. So you saw me stamp that combination on my Halloween card class. And I did bring that moon back in so that you could see what the difference between the two was. I wanted a little bit more of a golden glow, which is why I went for Lemon Lolly with this one. And honestly, I probably either should have colored Thanks in Lemon Lolly or cut it in Lemon Lolly cardstock, but it still looks good with the combination of the yellow, the white, the blue, and the black. But really, really fun card. Now, I will say you don't have to color that entire panel with your Stampin' Blends. I don't know if I said that before, but let me just repeat that in case I did or didn't. You can save some of the ink inside your markers there by just going about 3/4 of the way down the panel. You don't have to go all the way to the bottom because, of course, with that silhouette piece, you're going to be covering some of it. So you can just keep that in mind. Now, here is a Lemon Lolly card base. I cut that at 4 1/4 by 11, and then we're scoring it at 5 1/2 inches. And my original layout, I stamped some edging around my layers, and I didn't love the way that it turned out, so I made a modification to it, and I'll show you the modification in the end there. Okay, so the first problem was that I freehanded this, and I think if it was a much smaller strip, just a little hillside or something like that, it would have gone better. And maybe if I had a ruler to sort of guide me or marker, something like that, like a line or something. But because I was freehanding it and because I was just kind of eyeballing it around the layer, I didn't measure it out. I started to get a little bit crooked with this border. So on the one hand, I actually love the border. I do. I love the border, but I started getting a little bit sloppy, and I had some gaps, and then I started going crooked with my lines. And I thought to myself, well, in Halloween, these fences are crooked and they are broken and they do have gaps. And that's just part of the charm. And that was one of the reasons why I left this piece in the video. You can decide for yourself. You guys might like the look of this and you might be very easily able to problem solve. One thing that I could have done was had like a scrap panel of the deckled rectangle die and then just put that in place temporarily to stamp this edging. That would have been a great idea. But ultimately, I end up switching it out. So you'll see. I couldn't let it go. I didn't love it in the end, but I just want you to see that sometimes I change things, and I think that we can all do that sometimes, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with it, but I do want to show you the original idea as well. So can you see me tucking in that little piece of scrap there? And that made me feel so much better. It felt a little bit more like a rolling hillside. It felt a little bit more silhouette-ish, and I didn't have to worry about that gap with the moon on the edge of the card there. It just really made me feel better. I thought that piece like really helped fit the puzzle, if you know what I mean. And so I'm just gluing on that die cut. And I did want to let you know, for those of you who are Paper Pumpkin subscribers, you probably already know this, but there's actually a coordinating thanks stamp that goes with that die. I haven't used it. That's just the die alone. And I mean, is that not fabulous? I can't tell you how many thank you cards I have used this on so far this year since I've had it. It just stays out on my desk. I'm just constantly reaching for it. I love the font. I love the size. I love everything about it. And I was making thank you cards for the people who basically, with their purchase, earned the class. So because they're getting the Halloween class, I thought, how much fun would it be to do a Halloween themed thank you card? I'm finishing up with my sparkle gems here in silver. I thought, they would kind of take the place of stars. But I know that a lot of people who create these Halloween scenes really like to do sort of like splatter patterns or things like that. So whatever you think is best. And if you have a star stamp set, go for it. But I just went with the sparkle gems. Okay, here's my go-to quick fix. Night of Navy cardstock and the next size up in the deckled rectangle dies so that I could have a triple layer. That is a go-to thing for me. I will do that a lot. If I get stuck on a card design, if the stamping doesn't work out the way that I want it to, that is a go-to thing for me. And you guys can let me know in the comments below, what is your go-to if you make a mistake with your card, or not necessarily a mistake, but maybe you just don't like the way that it turns out. Let me know in the comments what you guys tend to do. Do you start over again, or do you just make a modification on your card as well? I would love to know. Okay, so here is card 2 of 3 for today's video. The first 2 cards are these evening silhouettes, 2 different versions of a really spooky scene that I thought you guys might enjoy. I have a portrait and a landscape version of the cards. I'll also be changing up the dies. Now this time we're going to go for that basic white and basic beige combo for the moon. This is just like a winning combination for me. I cannot recommend basic beige enough. You are going to be reaching for it all the time. And I'm talking ink, cardstock, ribbon. You are going to reach for it. It is so useful. I love this addition to our color collection. Okay, and then this is the Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and we are coming back in again with our house stamp. I am going to mask off that tree one more time. Now, I will say, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world, even if I did stamp it. So it's entirely up to you guys. But I decided to leave it off. So you can see how when we ink up the stamp, it doesn't ink up the tree. And so that's like the quickest way to kind of do, and probably the most cost-effective way to do some quick masking. Then I just stamped it, and we're going to do the same thing. So the same thing that we just saw, I'm going to do it one more time. I'm using that pointed, there's like a journaling tip and then a brush tip on the Stampin' Write marker in basic black. And I'm outlining with the journaling tip tip because that is where I feel like I have more precision. And the only place that I really feel like I need the precision is on this porch where we have this little square here between the porch, like wraparound part, because most of it's going to be all black, right? Just like we did before. But I will say, my ink, my basic beige ink was not dry yet. And can you see how that started to get away from me? It started to spread a little bit. So just a tip, make sure that your ink is dry first. Just set your moon aside for a minute. The other place where I felt like I needed a little bit of precision is that little chimney that's coming out up at the top there. But you can always, again, you could always sort of tweak it or fix it or modify it. So I'm just coloring this in. And I do feel like it's important to mention that this marker is only $3.50. And I don't know what the life expectancy of the marker is supposed to be, but I can tell you that my basic black marker has lasted me a very long time. I just recently bought the newer version of it. They kind of did a little bit of an overhaul with our Stampin' Right markers, and they both are fabulous, and they both are just as opaque and fabulous for silhouettes as ever. So whichever one you have, use it. And if you need, just one product to get you over a certain amount, right? Like if you're placing an order and you're trying to reach a certain amount for something, consider that marker because it's a great addition to the collection. Now I am going to refer to the Grove dies here. This is probably one of my I should say one of my most used dies of all time. I'm not kidding. I have done so many different projects with this, and there's a newer, slightly different version of this woodland scene, equally beautiful in the annual catalog, and I would have loved to show you that version of it, but it's on back order. So if you guys have any questions about that, let me know, and I'll see if I can find out what the date is that it's going to be back in stock. So that silhouette had been cut out in basic black, and like I said, I'll have all the products listed. But oh my gosh, I just love these dies. I love the stamp set too. Now I had cut out, well here, let's do this first. So, Night of Navy, I ended up using on both cards. So you can decide. And what I did with this particular card was I did a tone on tone scene. So the card base is going to be Night of Navy. And then I'm also doing a deckled rectangle layer in Night of Navy, and then we're going to do our wood scene with the Grove die cut that we cut out. Now, I was trying to get really narrow, thin edges on my woodland scene, and I ended up snagging the edge off of the die. Now, there are definitely different ways that you can change up this particular die scene, or if you do have the other version of this, the In the Grove, you could do the same thing. But I just decided to trim that down so that it cut in instead of being a full frame. And I don't really think that you can tell. Like, I think it's pretty subtle. And you can see the way that I'm just sort of taking little pieces off one at a time until I get happy with it, with my paper snips, which I would describe as precision scissors. I love those when I have to sort of get in and make a difference or something like that. And doesn't that look fabulous? So this is an alternative if you don't have Stampin' Blends, or if you haven't gotten them in the particular colors that I showed you. I am going to be doing two versions of the sky in Stampin' Blends in this video. But for this card, we're actually going to use the Night of Navy cardstock as our backdrop. So no coloring is necessary, and I'm going to show you an optional step with a stamp set that is probably collecting dust on your shelf. We're going to get it out and we're going to use it for Halloween projects that we have coming up here. Okay, and drum roll, that is our pigment ink. We have our Whisper White pigment ink. This is a stamp set, or I should not a stamp set, but an ink pad that I should say doesn't get used very often. I feel like my words are stumbling out of my mouth today. I apologize. But you guys can see the way that this scene is building, right? I mean, how cool is this? So just a slight variation. Like I said, the first card was a portrait scene. This is a landscape scene. Now I am taking my small blending brush, and what I am doing is just starting in the center and creating essentially a radiating circle on my Night of Navy cardstock that is going to be a moonlight glow. Okay. And so I just went on to Stampin' Up's website real quick because I wanted to see how they described the pigment ink, because whoever writes all of their descriptions, they're a very talented person. And this is what it says. It is great for embossing or for creating an opaque look on dark cardstock. And I just couldn't have put that better myself. So if you have this, I encourage you to get this out. Do you see how subtle this is? Now, this isn't meant to completely stand out, on the finished card. And I feel like it doesn't read on camera as well as it does to the naked eye in person, like when you get the card in your hand and you're holding it. Because once we put our forest scene over this, it's going to really sort of mute it down a little bit, but I'm telling you, between the trees, you can see that moonlight glow. And I just think it is the coolest look. Now, pigment ink it almost feels like a little bit sticky. So that's why you see me sort of fanning it to dry it. And if you want to get your heat tool and just kind of set it more quickly, you can do that. Like if you're going to be putting adhesive on it. But honestly, it dried, it dried without a problem because I did this on a couple of different panels. I was kind of experimenting. And I will say, you can see how that pigment ink did pick up some of the blue on the cardstock, and it has a little bit of leftover color on my blending brush there, that small blending brush. I can wash that off later. So no harm, no foul there. Okay. So now we're just going to create our card base. We're just going to do our standard A2 size card base, for no, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4.25 for this particular card. I like to do inserts on the inside of cards that I have with dark cardstock. So if you choose to do that, typically it's like a white, you could have fun with this. You could do basic beige as the insert, or very vanilla as the insert, or lemon lolly. You could definitely do like a play with colors there, but I typically just use basic white cardstock 4 by 5.25 inches. So this is something that I see Stampin' Up, the people who are designing the cards for the catalogs and whatnot. This is something I see them doing very often that I hardly ever do. And every time I see it, I think to myself, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And it's the same layer cardstock color over the card base. So it looks the same, but it's not the same. So it just has a certain look to it that is so streamlined to me and so clean. Now, of course, I can't just let it go with Night of Navy on Night of Navy, because that's just too easy for me, particularly with a Halloween card. So I am going to bring in my small blending brush with the Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'm just going to edge the edges because, number one, it's deckled edge, and I feel like we should always edge deckled edges. I like to age them. I like them to look, a little more vintagey. So we're just going to bring in a little bit of moodiness with our Memento Tuxedo black ink. Isn't that cool? Isn't that just such a fun look? If you haven't added blending brushes or small blending brushes to your collection yet, I recommend those. So you can see it stands out a little bit better. So this is my brain. I just have to do that. I did trim the very edge, the bottom off of that moon. I don't know if I mentioned that. It's going to be covered by the scene. You're going to see right here. But that's a personal decision, if you want to manipulate that or not. I knew I wanted that house to be sitting in the grass line. So I knew that edge was going to be more easily covered than in the other card, right? So totally up to you guys how you want to do that. I am popping the moon up on dimensionals, which brings it right smack, at level, right at the same, because I did put dimensionals all over our tree scene there. And so it's still right up against each other, and that glow that we put on the layer is a little bit in the background, like it's sitting a little bit behind. And I absolutely loved that look. So the card is essentially done, like right here. I don't even feel like you necessarily need a greeting here, but the possibilities are endless. Now, I am going to show you a Halloween greeting for this card, if you would want to do that. But I am actually putting thanks on here because this is a thank you card for my customers. So, up to you, but let's take a look at what the two variations look like there. Okay, so this die cut I actually already had sitting out on my table because I had used it in a prior video. This is from Adventurous Sky Dies, and it looks like a little arrow essentially, and I just decided to trim off those edges. So it's Happy Halloween. It is from the Potions and Spells stamp set, and that is also an online exclusive item. And so you can see very clean, very streamlined. I actually liked it right under the house, oddly. But here you can put it up in the tree line. You know, you have different places where you can position it. If you guys like banner die cuts, the ones that sort of come down, you could use a different size greeting, and that would be really cool, like coming from the top down. So up to you. And then I liked how this thanks slightly overlapped with the house. I thought that was so cool. So again, we're going to bring in these sparkle gems. I've been using these nonstop because I've been doing like fall and Halloween cards using these. We have a combination of black, gold, and silver, so they're perfect. And they're a high shine embellishment, by the way. They have a lot of shimmer in person. And so again, I have these sort of standing in as stars for this second nighttime silhouette scene. I don't necessarily feel like there is a star of the show. And look, there's the card before I modified it. The lemon lolly version. That was before I modified it, but boy am I glad I changed it because every time I look at that background, I'm like, oh, that drives me crazy. Okay, so let's go ahead to our third and final card. Okay, this card, this version is for those of you who are not ready for Halloween. Maybe you're thinking more about sunset, or you're thinking about, maybe just sort of tiptoeing into harvest and fall scenes. That's what we're going to create with this version of the card. So this is our masking paper from Stampin' Up, and here's how it works if you've never used it. You stamp the image that you're going to mask on the masking paper. There is a front side and a back side because essentially masking paper is a sticker. So if you think about it, think about the adhesive that's on a Post-it, right? It's like that, where it's kind of a little bit tacky. It's not like full blown stick where you're not going to be able to get it off. Now, I have found with our masking paper on larger images that I do like to actually kind of put it on my clothes first. But for a small image like this, no big deal. I think I did put this on my arm once just to make sure that it wasn't too sticky. But honestly, overall, this masking paper has performed really well for me. I've used it a bunch of times. If you watch me regularly, you've probably seen it. I didn't have to worry about fussy cutting the bottom because I knew, again, that the bottom was going to be covered by our tree scene. So same die. I pre-cut it ahead of time using the Grove die, and then the outer die is the deckled rectangle. And that is something that's a go-to thing I've been doing since I've owned the dies. So they're a perfect match. You just wouldn't necessarily know it. That's the way that our products work, right? So the first scene was about nighttime, and this scene is about sunset, a sunset sky. So we're getting out our oranges. I have Cajun Craze, pumpkin pie, and peach pie in our Stampin' Blends. Same deal, you guys. I am running the colors down the scrap paper here just to eyeball it, just to see, is the marker in good condition? Do we have good color in there? What are the differences of the color as we go down? And I'm starting with Cajun Craze up at the top there. And again, I don't care if it's not a perfectly smooth line. This isn't a technique video in terms of how to do things perfectly. This is really just getting a cool look on a card, right? So we started with Cajun Craze. Now we're working our way into pumpkin pie. And what I try to do when I'm layering like this is meet the prior color just at the edge, like not fully going over it again, but just meeting it at the edge and then going continuously downward. Now on this panel, you do need to take the color all the way down, pretty much to the bottom there, because you're going to see the majority of the color. But how cool was that? And you can tell those peach pie blends are brand new because they were smooth as silk when I was coloring those. But those actually were all in really good shape. And I just recently replaced my pumpkin pie stamp and blend. So if you haven't done that yet and you're going to be making a harvest and Halloween themed projects, definitely I would say maybe go for the colors, do a little inventory and stock up on that card stock and the markers and such. Okay, and so like I said, this was sort of an experimental session, and I had tried a different stamping technique for these trees, and I didn't love it. So I grabbed my shaded spruce stamping pad, which is well inked, by the way, and I am trying to strategically go all along the top of the trees and then along the frame, but I'm trying to leave the tree trunks, and I'm not succeeding very well, but I'm trying to leave the tree trunks white so that I can color those with my Stampin' Blend in one of my browns. And I ended up going for the natural tone in the darkest brown shade that we have, to just give it, just to kind of stick to that really deep look, because wow, this became so wet and saturated. I had to give it time to dry. Okay, and so we're going to set that aside and let's focus on coloring our house. I would just say go with the colors that you either have, or go with a theme. In this case, I was really trying to think about sunset. I was trying to think about late summer, early fall, and I was also trying to think about like imagery that really sort of stands out to me. And our, you know, the sunset scene, like the sky that we just created essentially, is very dramatic, like in my opinion. We have these like burnt oranges and peaches, and it's beautiful and it's bold. And I know that we're going to put our tree scene over it, but I really, really wanted this house to pop. I really, really wanted it to stand out. And so, all of that to say, I went with Poppy Parade. So I chose a bright red, and I went with our like more orangey red, right? Because real red is more of like a blue red, and Poppy Parade is more of like an orangey red or a yellow red. So I went with the Poppy Parade combo. I'm starting by coloring like the rooftop and the porch, roof and all of that with pebbled path. And I wanted the windows to glow. So I did Daffodil Delight for the window so that it looked like the lights were on inside the house. And this is the first pass of color. So this is really just laying down the color and saying, okay, this is what the color of the house is going to look like. This is what the color of the roof is going to look like. This is what, the windows are going to look like. And so as you're starting to build your color, you can really start to get a little bit dramatic if I'm not being too dramatic by describing that. And you can start really playing with that color. So once I had the gray down, I thought it's okay, right? But I really wanted it to be bold. So I decided to step that up and add in black. And not just black, but I actually brought my Stampin' Right marker back in. So I do think I did grab my basic black Stampin' Blends, but the Stampin' Blends are a different type of black than the Stampin' Right marker. That Stampin' Right marker, like I said, is that opaque black. And because I had just used it on 2 other cards, it was just right on my table there. And I thought, what if I come in and I start doing some definition? What if I just start doing some detail edging, just like people would have on a farmhouse, right? Like their trim might be a darker color than their roof, or, something like that. But as I was laying down the color and as I was starting to see that definition come into play, I thought, oh my gosh, like this really looks bold to me. So I just kept going. Yeah, there's my basic black blends. I thought I brought those in. So I don't know if I would necessarily normally recommend using your Stampin' Blends with your Stampin' Right markers. They're two completely different things. Stampin' Right markers are a water-based marker. They're safe to actually color directly onto your stamp with. That's like the main difference. And alcohol blends, of course, have alcohol based. So water based and the alcohol, I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh, mix them. But what I was trying to do with the Stampin' Right marker was only that really crisp definition on those edges where I needed it. And then I brought in the basic black Stampin' Blend combos to kind of color in the fill color essentially of the roof. And so to me, this really started to shine. I went back in and I just did like the window sills and things like that, the window trim in black, where there was like a curve on the house, like wherever the line on the house was, the pillars on the front porch, all of that. So, and I did, I could have sped this up even faster, but I did want to leave this part in for those of you who do like to color along with me, or you like to come back and reference the video, because like I said, there is a free project sheet for today's cards, but the project sheet is probably going to be focusing more on the, all of the different coloring and things than on the measurements for the actual card. It's not like a necessarily a fun fold class. It's just like our standard card bases, but we have so much detail going on with these cards that the project sheet is really more for, okay, what was the color combination that you used, what markers, what colors, but look at the way that that all starts to come together, right? Like, it's a wow. And the first time I put that wood scene over top the trees, and they look so lush. So what I grabbed was my Shaded Spruce Dark Stampin' Blend, and I thought, I wonder if I can blend in the base of this house with the base of the layer. So even though it's two different types of shaded spruce, one's the marker and one is the actual ink from the ink pad, it looks beautiful. It looks absolutely beautiful. I loved it. And so this is one of those things that when we're experimenting and when we're playing, you might not necessarily know, but at the end you're like, boy, did that pay off. Or at the end you're like, oh boy, I don't like that at all. So it's either going to be one or the other, right? But it's so much fun to have these sessions with you where we can play and try different things and really have a lot of fun with, I think this stamp set in the annual catalog is hidden. The From Our Home, I feel like that stamp set is a star. Like, it is an absolute star. Year round, seasonal, you're going to be able to coordinate that From Our Home stamp set with just about every scene that you have. If you have scene dies, things like that. We're going to be working with this more, but it is toward the back of the annual catalog. Now, I thought about bringing in our moon. I had one moon left that I had stamped, and it does look cool. I mean, I'm not going to say that it doesn't, but I felt like it was taking away from all of the coloring I had just done with the house and with the sky. So in that particular case, I thought, I think we have enough going on. I'm just going to leave the moon off of it, and we'll let the house be the star of this card. So even though I feel like that sky is really bold and it really stands out, once the house came to life with the coloring, I really felt like that was the star of the card. And you guys can let me know in the comments what you think, what your opinion on that is. Should I have left the moon in, or do you like it without the moon? Let me know. I will not be offended, right? This is all just a matter of personal preference. But I hope that you love the card. Now, one thing that happens to me with the design process is I will play with different colors of cardstock for my card base. Now, I know that some people really stick to the same color card base. Like, I have friends and demonstrators who really, truly, typically only use basic white as their card base, and then all of their layers are with the colored cardstock. And for me, it's actually the opposite. I do colored cardstock for almost all of my cards. I do use basic white sometimes, but I just absolutely love color cardstock bases. So sometimes I don't know exactly what color I'm going to use, and I take the time to match them up. And do you know what color I actually settled on? I will give you a hint. It is one of our new in colors. I actually ended up going with peach pie for this card base. I have been completely immersing myself in the 2024-2026 In Color collection for my In Color Club, which runs over the course of 5 months. Peach Pie was the first color that we featured and used, and I felt like it was a perfect match to this, because we're not quite transitioned into fall yet, so we're really kind of more in that summer peachy orange vibe, but we are headed in that direction, right? So the forest is still lush, the sky is still pretty bright, but we're getting into late summer and we're heading into that fall season, and that's really what this card reminds me of. So what I ended up doing, I couldn't decide what I wanted to do for my sentiment. There is a home sweet home stamp, really nice and small, very thin font. So this isn't something that's like big and bold like the two thanks die cuts that I had been using. And I stamped it in Memento Tuxedo Black on this little circle from the Round We Go dies. And I just thought that it looked out of place. And I was like, it's too white. Like, it's too white compared to the rest of the card. So I decided to stamp it again, just right above the house. I want to thank you so much for being here today. If you like videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. If you know somebody who would appreciate this video, please give it a like or a share. This really helps to get the videos out there to more people and the channel. Stay tuned for my next video. And remember, if you're interested in my free Halloween card class with purchase, that deadline on that is July 31st, 2024. And those card kits are expected to ship by mid-August. If you have any questions, please email me. I will have all of my information in the description box below. All right, I'll see you in the next one.